your mark, ready, set, let's go.
Yeah, baby.
On your mark, ready, set, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to swing, baby. Yeah.
Getting jiggy with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's freedom, baby. Yeah.
Getting jiggy with it.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Getting jiggy with it.
Smashing, baby.
Count of three. I want everybody the place to be. To make some noise if you're down with me. 1, 2, 3.
Rock your body. What?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
True. It was a new negotiation because, as I say, President Ford was within about 10% of having a solution that could be acceptable. And I think
because if either side felt safe from attack, that made nuclear war more acceptable and therefore more probable. Elaborate Soviet civil defense plan.
Power in America and under the but in our families, neighborhoods, workplaces, and voluntary groups across this land. So we reduced spending growth. He stood me near a window to get the lighting just right, engaged me in conversation.
Speaking to you now from a busy street in Hollywood and inviting you to witness the actual filming of an exciting scene from a new picture called Accidents Will Happen.
Studying to be a rat. The money belongs to Marty just as soon as he gets away from the influence of highbinders like...
Unafraid.
Starring Ronald Reagan, Diana Lynn, and...
Who lived in a broken-down castle on a broken-down river with a broken-down aunt. In fact, she was a broken-down princess.
Oh, my. Football.
It is no coincidence that our present troubles parallel and are proportionate.
Freedom and opportunity.
Before they have a chance to finish their job and get away. I've been tipped off that Crockett is... Attention! 5 dangerous commandos are loose in the fatherland, and they must be caught. They are too dangerous to live.
People, and I have put forward a many-point drug program that includes... Reagan asked for and received my candor. He never asked for, but he did receive my loyalty.
Read about it in the probation report.
But Connie, why didn't you get in touch with me?
Oh, I was so terribly ashamed I didn't want anyone to know.
Columbia Pictures presents The Monkees.
I'd rather be back in reform school.
That's funny. I always thought they were pretty tough at reform schools.
Yeah, at least they give you a decent feed and they don't shove you in...
States in 1980, the nation's economy had been in a state of great inflation since 1965. The decade leading up to Reagan's presidency was characterized...
When I'm with you, like Mary and Tally, doing a Rudy ballet, or making my...
The only thing the audience will see of me is the back of my head. Of course, that's better than the front of Carson's, but...
Really a great experience.
Even presidents can't get enough of this unique gourmet.
Who? Hold on. Mr. President, who's on the phone?
This started at 10 and we worked on till 9 or 10 at night, usually sometimes later and sometimes earlier.
You rarely left the offices.
Spend money.
Remember, one person can...
We were going to run away. She'd been getting out to meet me for a long time. I'm Drake McHugh. Maybe you've heard about me. You wonder if you haven't, the way people gab. And most of what they say is true. Richard, well, what do you think it was about? A radio station. Would you like to see a few scenes?
Stick around a minute. I got to pull with the operator.
Reagan's got his best part. Who could ask for anything more? When you see this romance.
To the number required for victory. According to our projections, Ronald Reagan now has the required 207.
It's highly curable.
Ours are increasingly obsolete. The same thing has happened in other areas. Over the same period, the Soviet Union built a position of parity is a box score of 1,300 to nothing in their favor. So, together with our NATO allies, we've produced 950 artillery and rocket launchers, while the Soviets have produced more than 13,000. A stat, more than half of all American oil imports now pass through the Caribbean. The rapid buildup of Grenada's military put here, defense will still amount to only 28% of the budget. The calls for cutting back the defense budget.
Boy, have I got a story.
It gives him a total of 274. Now, you don't always get news that good when you get...
By ideals, by love of country, and not the pursuit of profit. I don't want you prosecuted. I don't.
I don't think there's any impediment there at all.
The Soviets no longer will require SDI to be restricted if you want to get started.
That was eliminated.
And the man who will inherit the Middle East stalemate in just 2 months.
Well, it does represent a change from their previous attitude.
If indeed...
To consider a new plan to protect government secrets in the case.
Out economically because of a very high medical bill, then the insurance would help pay for it.
Can't care for and might not love. They need our care, our guidance, and our education.
Against Colonel Gaddafi, or by striking at his terrorist installations, we only met. And this. Notice that each so-called recovery left unemployment higher than before the recession. In 1968, unemployment stood at 3.6%. High interest rates and unemployment. Getting to the roots of unemployment meant fighting inflation and high interest rates caused by runaway government spending. 4% in 1980 is down to just 5.1% so far this year. Interest rates, which had climbed as high as 21.5% by all of us here in government. The parents of one slain couple wired me. Our daughter and her husband died in Korea and carrying on his duties in Lebanon. Let us meet our responsibilities. For longer than any of us can remember. I wouldn't comment about the recent congressional hearings on the Iran-Contra matter until the hearings were... We also suggest the pulses of an evil empire to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and the original Iran initiative in order to develop relations with those who might assume leadership in a post-Khomeini government.
To work with the entire resources of MGM Studio geared to putting this subject on the screen as fast...
White effect. By turning the knobs of this dimmer, we can change the colors, mix them, and get different effects.
You can have a warm yellow.
I hope you don't mind, goddamn regret having that.
Yeah, why don't you? I hope you don't mind.
The Admiral should have told me not to worry.
Waving to the small crowd, you can hear some applause, and coming around to join President Carter.
And Carter had each landed some jabs, but there's still no decisive winner.
Within a margin of safety.
Function in such circumstances.
And remembering, Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain.
Well, I'm sure we will when we reach that point, but there's no way to pick a figure now.
Mr. President, will you delay your trip to California with Chancellor if the strike is still on later this week?
From some other species.
Can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And that,
if there is a bear.
Bus. I would imagine the other stars.
One senator we can always count on to stand up for his beliefs is Jesse Helms. 3 years ago, I issued a call for a national literacy initiative for community action and private sector participation. Look to the California Republican Assembly. Democracy's best days. Rode and into a barnyard, and the driver turned down peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack. And about the fourth time this happened, he stopped in his regular speech And he said, in unity among our great allies
will be a powerful voice of freedom.
Fred, for the first time, I'd like to answer him. Who else do you know who is an actual eyewitness to most of the history of our country? Happy Thanksgiving, and God bless you all. He got up on the mound, and when they came back, he gave his speech. The program has failed, so I've abandoned it and turned to increasing taxes instead of trying to reduce federal. That our best days are for America's children. And while drug and alcohol abuse cuts across all generations, it's especially damaging to the young people on whom an America whose divergent but harmonizing communities were a reflection of a deeper community of values. Place a high premium on accuracy. Let me say, I did not actually hear George Washington say that.
Governor Reagan again, typically,
into an economy that has provided more opportunity and a higher standard of living for more people than any other in the history of mankind.
Right, average, liberal-minded kids made their way one Friday night to an anti-nuke rally, unaware.
Minded, moralistic viewpoints.
Janet! But how did that happen?
It's regret!
Olivia de Havilland.
Are you in love with him and not with me?
I guess I am, George.
Please. Calls for immediate action. Now, it's going to be your job to get in with the smuggler.
So I felt right at home when we made this picture with the 11th Cavalry up at Monterey, California. But I'd like to show you some scenes from the picture.
Walls, and Professor Ronald Reagan has switched from botany to anatomy, while Don DeFore, Phyllis...
Thomas Jefferson.
Of debate, it's time for us to get together and enact a port modernization bill. Enacting the Soviet negotiating position into American law would not be the way to win a good agreement. So, our differences with a system that openly proclaims and practices an alleged right to command people's lives and to export its
time and letting men slobber over and... Good reporter could dig up a lot of stuff about the Klan, couldn't he? Might even say it was all a phony.
You don't belong.
Is out. Joe ain't marrying Sadie.
No, sir. My 10% ain't tying up to nobody.
That's right, Waldo. Joe's got his career to think of. Well, you fellas think...
Of a wall is permitted to stand. It is not the German question alone that remains open, but the...
Nobody knows her name.
You're in a bad way. Your ship's down lower than Bullwinkle's character. What'll you give me if I can float her free in 6 hours?
In 1985, an Iranian-backed terrorist group held 7 American hostages in Lebanon.
14th Cavalry was stationed, and I became a reserve officer in the cavalry. And it really started there.
One else, without whose presence I certainly wouldn't have the nerve to do what I am going.
The right to strike, as decided by the membership, is a legitimate tool of bargaining with private industry. Indeed, I was the only president of my union. Now, one of the reasons that school districts have a financial
and federal grants and work for tax retention plans, which will keep some of the to one.
When President Reagan was inaugurated.
Get him out! Get him out! Get him out! Get out, back! Get him out! No!
On your mark, ready, set, let's go. Yeah, baby. On your mark, ready, set, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to